Hello dear students and viewers, welcome once again to this educational channel called Learn Bio with Janet. I'm teacher Janet and today we'll be discussing an important nutrient and organic compound. It's a type of lipids called fats. Fats are of great interest to health experts and us because the type of fats we eat greatly affect our heart health and mental health, among other things. Do you know which types of food contain good fats that can help you to maintain good health? In this lesson, we'll be studying the two different types of fats, and that is saturated fats and unsaturated fats. Sometimes they are called the bad fats and the good fats. We'll compare them and see what's the difference between them and discuss the effects of eating each type of fat on health. We also suggest steps to lower the risk of getting cardiovascular diseases such as coronary heart disease. In this video, we will apply our knowledge to discuss 3 good popular forecast exam questions on this subtopic in order to prepare you for the exams. You can copy the excellent model answers with keywords and marking schemes into your notebook. Like, comment, share and subscribe. Thank you. Let's study biology together. Today's lesson is about Form 4 biology and also Form 5 biology. It will be a form of revision for Form 5 students because it involves the same chapter, okay, from Form 4. Chapter 4, Form 4, Lipids, Part 2. This is the second video on lipids. The learning outcomes are as follows. Firstly, we must be able to compare and contrast saturated fats and unsaturated fats after this lesson. Secondly, we must be able to predict the effect of regularly eating excessive saturated fats on a person's health. Let us discuss the different types of lipids that we have mentioned in the last video. They are the waxes, steroids, fats, and phospholipids. Of all these, the fats are the most important, and because it's the focus of our topic here. And fats include the solid fats and the liquid oils. Okay, so a fat molecule is formed through condensation when one glycerol molecule and 3 fatty acid molecules combine with the removal of 3 water molecules. Today we'll be studying about the 2 different types of fats, which is saturated fats and unsaturated fats. So what are saturated fats? Saturated fats are those that have saturated fatty acids, meaning the fatty acids have only have single bonds between carbon atoms in their hydrocarbon chain here. There are no double bonds. So you can see that there are single lines here. And imagine that there are carbon atoms at all the corners here. So the carbon atoms are linked to another one by single bonds. Okay, they're held together by single bonds. The single line represents single bonds. So this molecule is a fat molecule. And this is the glycerol component of the fat molecule, and this is the fatty acid component. So we are interested in the hydrocarbon chain, where we see here the carbon atoms all have single bonds between each other. Same for this fatty acid and this one. So we say the fatty acid is already saturated because these carbon atoms have already bonded to the maximum number of other atoms, and they can no longer react and form bonds with additional hydrogen atoms. They are fully saturated with the hydrogen atoms already. Now for unsaturated fats, there is at least one double bond between 2 carbon atoms in the hydrocarbon chain of the fatty acid. So unsaturated fats have unsaturated fatty acids, where the fatty acid have at least one double bond between the carbon atoms. So if this bond, one of these double bonds should break, then the carbon atom will have only a single bond here, and it will try to form bonds, it will form bonds with additional hydrogen atoms, okay, to replace the bond that has broken. So that's why it's said to be unsaturated fatty acid, meaning that it has not, the carbon atoms have not combined with the maximum number of hydrogen atoms yet. It can still combine with hydrogen atoms, new additional hydrogen atoms, if the double bond, if one of the bonds in the double bond breaks. We'll study more about it, so do not worry if you do not quite understand it. Let us revise the formation and structure of a fat molecule in these diagrams. So a molecule of glycerol combines with 3 molecules of fatty acids through the process of condensation to form a fat molecule with the removal of 3 water molecules. And we can see here that the fat molecule contains a glycerol component here and 3 fatty acids here. And the bond between them are called the ester bonds. So let's see what the structure of a saturated fat is like. So here the picture is about the same as the one above, except that now the fatty acid is shown as a circular structure with a zigzag tail, and there are more details here. So this is a saturated fat molecule where there is a glycerol component here, the glycerol part, that has bonded with the carboxyl group, okay, of the fatty acid. So the bond here is called the ester bond. So the ester bond is formed when carboxyl group, which is the COOH group from fatty acid, reacts with the hydroxyl group, OH group from glycerol, as we have learned from the previous video on lipids, okay, lipids part 1. So the circular part here should be linked to the glycerol, and it should not be at the other end there, here, as is drawn in some books. So I just want to clarify with you, because you may be confused if you see the circular part at this end here. Just know that that's not correct, okay, because the circular part represents the carboxyl group of the fatty acid that has reacted with the hydroxyl group, okay, and the ester bond is formed here. So the hydrocarbon chain does not react with the glycerol at all directly. Now this hydrocarbon chain, as we know, consists of the carbon atoms at all the corners here, which are bonded with each other. The carbon atoms are bonded with each other there, and also with the hydrogen atoms, not shown here also. So the bonds are all single bonds, and it's represented by a single line. And this type of fatty acid that has only single carbon-to-carbon bonds are called saturated fatty acids, okay, saturated fatty acids. This one's also a saturated fatty acid, and so is this. So this is to help you understand what is meant by this picture, okay. And this whole structure is a saturated fat molecule because of the saturated fatty acids, which only have single bonds between the carbon atoms. So in this condition, the carbon atoms can no longer react with other atoms because it already has 4 bonds. Each carbon atom has already formed 4 bonds with other atoms, and that's the maximum number of bonds that it can form with other atoms, okay. So it cannot react with any additional hydrogen atoms anymore, so we say that the fatty acid is saturated already with the hydrogen atoms. Now let's compare the saturated fats with the unsaturated fats. So on the left here we have the saturated fat molecule. As we've explained in the previous slide, saturated fats contain saturated fatty acids, where there are only single bonds between the carbon atoms. Or even on this picture, imagine there are carbon atoms at all the corners here, and the single line here represents the single bond between two carbon atoms. Okay, single bond between two carbon atoms here and here. Okay, so this is just a straightened out version of the carbon chain here. So saturated fats contain saturated fatty acids in which the carbon atoms are already saturated with the hydrogen atoms. Okay, saturated with hydrogen atoms already, meaning that the carbon atoms cannot bond with additional hydrogen atoms again, with new hydrogen atoms, because it has already got a maximum of 4 bonds already. So it's not going to bond with any more additional hydrogen atoms. So we say that it's saturated, it's filled up already, okay, with the bonds to the hydrogen atoms. And examples are like fats that are solid at room temperature, such as animal fats. These are the saturated fats. So for example, chicken fat, butter, and ghee, and also dairy products like full cream milk. They're all saturated fats. They contain the saturated fats, and it's not good for health. Okay, saturated fats, we study them because they are not good for health, and we should reduce consumption of these fats because they can cause high cholesterol levels in the person's blood. Okay, now let's go on to unsaturated fats. So unsaturated fats have unsaturated fatty acids in which the carbon atoms are not saturated with hydrogen atoms. There are still double bonds between the carbon atoms, and the carbon atoms here at the double bonds can still bond with additional hydrogen atoms if the double bond were to break and become a single bond. Let me give you an example. So for this double bond here between these two carbon atoms, we see that the carbon atoms have actually 4 bonds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Same for this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. But the double bond can break. Okay, so if the double bond were to break and you will just have one single bond between these two carbon atoms, then this carbon atom here will tend to form a 4th bond. Now it has only got 3 bonds. It will tend to form a 4th bond with an additional hydrogen atom from elsewhere. Same for this one. This carbon atom has got only 3 bonds now, so it tends to form a 4th bond with an additional hydrogen atom. So because of this, we say that in this condition with a double bond, the fatty acid is unsaturated. It's not fully saturated with hydrogen atoms yet, because you can still form bonds here with the hydrogen atoms should the double bond break. Okay, so that's the meaning of unsaturated fats. Okay, it has the potential to form more bonds with additional hydrogen atoms. Now, examples of unsaturated fats are oils that are liquid at room temperature. For example, vegetable oils such as olive oil and corn oil, and also an animal oil, and that's the fish oil. So fish oil is an exception because it's from animals, but it has unsaturated fats. Now, unsaturated fats are good to eat because they are good for health, and they do not cause an increase in the cholesterol level in the blood if they are eaten. Okay, in fact, they have many other benefits. So, conclusion is a person should eat more unsaturated fats and not the saturated fats. Let us find out what foods contain saturated fats and what foods contain unsaturated fats. Saturated fats are from mainly the animal sources, such as dairy products like full cream milk, cheese, butter. These all contain a lot of saturated fats. And also from chicken fat and the fat in meat, like mutton or lamb. And cakes and fried foods may also have a lot of saturated fats if they are made from using butter, if they use butter as one of the ingredients. Okay, so we should eat less of these saturated fats and substitute them with the unsaturated fats, which are better for health. So let's see what foods contain unsaturated fats. Firstly, we have the fish oils from the oily fish. Oily fish are fishes that contain oil in their tissues and not only just in their liver, whereas other fish, they only have oils in the liver. Okay, so this type of fish have oil from their tissues. For example, if you grill a salmon, you will see a lot of oil coming out from it. Okay, because it's an oily fish. So the oils are the good oils and they are unsaturated fats, which can provide a lot of benefits to our health. They're called the omega-3 fatty acids, but we will not discuss this here. So other oily fish include the tuna, sardine, and mackerel. Mackerel is a type of fish that we can get in locally. Okay, now let's look at other sources of unsaturated fats. These are from plants. Avocado is a fruit that has a lot of unsaturated fats. Nuts and seeds like almonds and cashew nuts and also walnuts. Olive oil contains unsaturated fats, and other vegetable oils like corn oil and so forth. Let's look at a more complete list of the sources of saturated fats and unsaturated fats. So saturated fats are mainly from animal sources and they are usually solids at room temperature. These include the fatty meat like lamb, chicken, mutton, and other meats, except for oily fish. Fats from animals. High-fat dairy products are those like whole milk or full cream milk, butter and ghee. Ghee is a type of clear butter that's been processed. Cheese, cream, ice cream. And coconut oil is also a saturated fat, although it's from plants. Many baked and fried foods. Now for unsaturated fats, there are two types: the monounsaturated fats and the polyunsaturated fats. Mono means one, so monounsaturated fats have only one double bond between the carbon atoms in each fat molecule. Okay, only one double bond between carbon atoms in the hydrocarbon chain of the fat molecule. Examples are olive oil, sesame oil, avocado, and nuts. Polyunsaturated fats have two or more double bonds between the carbon atoms for each fat molecule, or in each fat molecule, because poly means many, so two or more double bonds. Examples are corn oil, sunflower oil, seeds like pumpkin seeds, salmon, tuna, mackerel, sardine, and other fatty fish. Let us look at some good forecast essay questions for the exam, or it may even come out in the structured question and also objective questions. Okay, so question 1, the diagram shows two types of fats, fat A and B. Compare and contrast between the two types of fats shown here. Fat A is butter and fat B is olive oil. Right, so this question is an essay question that is allocated 10 marks. We're going to discuss this question first of all. What are the differences between fat A and B? Now fat A, what type of fat is it? Yes, it's a saturated fat. And fat B, unsaturated fat. So you have to mention that first and then discuss the similarities plus differences. Compare and contrast means, once you have the word compare, it means similarities plus differences must be discussed. Okay. Now, question 2, which we will discuss later, is a man constantly eats fried oily food containing fat A, the butter. Explain the effects of this diet on his health. 5 marks. This is a HOTS question. It's a popular question in the exam, but hasn't been asked for some years. So this one is also good. So you need to copy down the question and the answers for these two parts and just draw the diagrams, because they are very good questions with good model answers. So before we answer this question, try and find out the similarities and the differences of these two fats yourself. But first, identify the types of fats, A and B. Okay? Right. So think about it first, and now we'll look at the model answer. Firstly, identify the two types of fats, A and B. It is not enough to state that fat A is butter and fat B is olive oil, because these are just examples, okay, for the types of fats. They are examples. So the type of fat is either saturated or unsaturated fat. So fat A is butter, which is a saturated fat, and fat B is olive oil, which is an unsaturated fat. 1 mark for saturated fat and unsaturated fat. Secondly, let's go on to the similarities. Both fat A and fat B consist of the elements carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, CHO. This is on the composition of lipids. Now, notice that I did not use the word butter and olive oil, because the question is referring to the fats as A and B. So we also refer to them as fats A and B, right? Both the fat A and B are formed through condensation, in which glycerol and fatty acids combine together. 1 mark. This is on the formation of the fats. And both contain non-polar hydrophobic molecules. This is on the characteristic of the fats, or the property of fats. Okay, as we said, non-polar means not having any uneven distribution of charges. In fact, they are not charged at all, and all parts of their molecules are neutral. Okay, hydrophobic means water repelling. Now, let's go on to the differences. So if you look at your answer here, you've already got 4 marks. You need 6 differences so that you can get 6 marks. That means 1 difference is 1 mark, and then you should be able to get 10 marks. Now, for the differences, you can use a table. Draw a table and then compare the two fats, fat A and B. Think about it first, and we'll look at the answer afterwards. Let us discuss the differences between A, saturated fats, and B, unsaturated fats. A contains saturated fatty acids, while B contains unsaturated fatty acids. 1 mark. For A, a saturated fat, the fatty acids have only single bonds between the carbon atoms. And you can draw the picture to show the saturated fatty acid here, right? With only single bonds between the carbon atoms, no double bonds. So this is a fatty acid molecule before reaction with the glycerol molecule to form the saturated fats. So we can still see the carboxyl group here. Now this is also found in the textbook, this type of diagram. So that means that you have to know the structure of the fatty acid and the glycerol, the molecular structure. Better to know the molecular structure of the fatty acids and the glycerol, okay, as seen here. Now, for B, the fatty acids have at least 1 double bond between the carbon atoms. Okay, so this is a double bond here between the carbon atoms, 2 carbon atoms. And it will cause the chain to bend a bit. Okay, there's a kink here caused by the double bond. So the main thing is that you want to show the double bond in the unsaturated fatty acid. This is an unsaturated fatty acid, meaning that it has a double bond which can break. If one of the bonds break, it becomes a single bond. Then it can react with additional hydrogen atoms and bond to them. So 1 mark for the second difference on the single and double bonds. The third difference between A and B, saturated fats and unsaturated fats, is that For A, carbon atoms are already saturated with a maximum number of hydrogen atoms. Each carbon atom has bonded with a maximum number of 4 atoms, okay, and it has formed the maximum of 4 bonds. So carbon atoms cannot form any more new chemical bonds with additional hydrogen atoms. Whereas for B, the carbon atoms are not yet saturated with hydrogen atoms, as there are double bonds between the carbon atoms. They can still break to form new single bonds. So when the bond breaks, then the carbon atoms can still bond with additional hydrogen atoms, as seen here. So this is a double bond between the carbon atoms in an unsaturated fat. So what if one bond were to break? So now the carbon has 3 bonds only, and it will tend to form a 4th bond, could be with a water molecule. Same for this part. Okay, so it can form new bonds with additional hydrogen atoms here. The 4th difference is that A, or saturated fats, exists as solids at room temperature, but B, unsaturated fats, exists as liquids at room temperature. Number 5, the food source for A are animal fats such as chicken fat and ghee. The food source for B, for fats such as B, are vegetable oils such as corn oil and fish oil. Number 6, the fats such as A are not good for health, as it raises cholesterol level in the form of LDL, or low density lipoprotein, in the blood. And when this cholesterol level is high, the cholesterol will tend to be deposited on the walls of arteries, and this can cause heart attack or stroke. Also, A, the saturated fat, can also increase the risk of diabetes. For B, it is better for health, as they can reduce the levels of the cholesterol, the LDL cholesterol, and they can reduce the cholesterol deposits in arteries. Thus, they reduce the risk of heart attack and stroke. So with all these points in, you will get 10 marks, or 10 points to get 10 marks for the essay question on comparison. Let's discuss how eating excess saturated fats on a long-term basis can cause heart disease. This is a picture of a heart, and these are the coronary arteries on the heart. They transport blood. The coronary artery transports blood containing oxygen and nutrients to the cardiac muscle cells here in the heart. So they are very important to the cardiac muscle. Okay, but just imagine that there's a blockage here, blockage by cholesterol. So how did this occur? It's because the person eats a lot of saturated fats, which increases the level of cholesterol in the blood. And this is the bad cholesterol, which will be deposited in the inner wall of the coronary artery. So over a long period of time, the cholesterol deposit will become thicker and thicker. Then the lumen will become smaller, and the blood flow is blocked. Cells that are on the other end here will lack oxygen because of the slow blood flow, and they may die. So when they die, the cells, like the cardiac muscle cells, when they die, the heart will stop beating, and that's when the person gets the heart attack. Sometimes in the exam, you may be given a picture showing the cross-section of the artery instead. So this first diagram shows a healthy artery that we may be able to find in younger people, okay, before the accumulation of the cholesterol in the lumen. So the lumen here is big, and the blood flow is good, all right? But after some years of eating saturated fats, this may happen where the cholesterol has been deposited on the wall of the artery, causing the lumen to become smaller, and blood flow is blocked. So this is a diseased artery. It's clogged by cholesterol deposits, and it may cause the blood to be unable to flow to the cells, for example, the cardiac muscle cells, and that can cause heart attack. Here are some good notes on the disadvantages of eating excessive saturated fats. This topic is quite important for the SPM. Now, the notes are based on the requirements of the KSSM syllabus. So, we can use these notes to write our answers. Saturated fats are not good for health because they raise the cholesterol level in the blood. This cholesterol is in the form of low-density lipoproteins, and this type of cholesterol tends to be deposited in the walls of the arteries in the body. The lumen of the arteries will become smaller, and the blood flow to the cells will be blocked. Thus, less oxygen is transported to cells for respiration, and the cells lack oxygen and die. If the coronary artery is blocked, then it's the cardiac muscle cells that will die. And then the person gets a heart attack when the heart stops beating. If the artery in the brain is blocked, then brain cells will die due to lack of oxygen, and the person will get a stroke. The symptoms of stroke are like paralysis, unable to move certain parts of the body. Okay. Thus, saturated fats increase the risk of heart attack and stroke. They also increase the risk of diabetes mellitus, which is in Malay we call penyakit kencing manis, and is due to high blood sugar level, excessively high blood sugar level. So the saturated fats have been found to increase the risk of diabetes too. So all these are based on scientific research. You can copy these notes in your notebook. It's very useful, and all the terms in red are some of the keywords that we can use to write essay answers or structured answers. Also important for objective questions. Let's look at this popular exam question which was shown just now. Question number 2. A man constantly eats fried oily food containing fat A, which is butter. Explain the effects of this diet on his health. 6 marks. So here's the model answer. Fat A, which is butter, is a saturated fat that increases the cholesterol level in the form of low-density lipoprotein in the blood. Lipoprotein is just a substance by which the cholesterol can be sent to the cells. The lipo is the lipid, it's the cholesterol part, and the protein is attached to it to carry it to the cells for use in the cells. But sometimes if it's stuck in the blood, and if the level of the lipoprotein is high, then the lipoprotein, especially the cholesterol, can be deposited in the walls of the arteries. So consider the low density lipoprotein as containing cholesterol that can be deposited in the walls of arteries. Okay, so this word is mentioned in the textbook, that's why I have to explain it to you. Alright, you can write it in this form. So the cholesterol level in the blood that's high will cause the cholesterol to be deposited in the walls of arteries, where it blocks the blood flow in the arteries, causing the lumen. Now lumen means the cavity of the arteries, the hole there, causing the lumen of the arteries to become smaller. So the body cells will lack oxygen because of the slow blood flow, which transports the oxygen to them. So body cells lack oxygen for respiration, and they will die. So if the blockage is in the coronary artery of the heart, then a heart attack occurs because the heart muscles will not get enough oxygen. If the blockage is in an artery in the brain, then the brain cells do not get enough oxygen and die. So a stroke occurs where the person may suffer from brain damage. So altogether there are 7 points, and it's enough to get you the 6 marks. This question is also often asked in the structured section. Okay, so copy down the answer. It's a good model answer for you. Here's an extra bonus question, which is also popular in the exam. Question 3 suggests 4 ways to reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease caused by a diet rich in saturated fats. So, cardiovascular disease means diseases involving the heart or the arteries. So how do we reduce the risk of getting these diseases caused by a diet rich in saturated fats? Here's the model answer. First, we should eat less saturated fats, and we can do that by choosing leaner cuts of meat that have less fat, steam or baked foods instead of frying, drink low-fat milk instead of full cream milk. You can choose one of these suggestions to support your point here, to eat less saturated fats. Secondly, replace the foods containing saturated fats such as cheese, butter, fatty meat with foods containing unsaturated fats such as nuts, fish and avocado. So this will help to prevent the cholesterol level in the blood from increasing. Okay, because eating saturated fats can cause the bad cholesterol level to increase. Number 3, exercise regularly to oxidize the fats in cellular respiration. So we have to explain what exercise does to our bodies. So when we exercise, we will need more energy for the muscle contractions, and cellular respiration will then increase in the cells. So the fats will be used to produce the energy through oxidation, and this will reduce the amount of fats, level of fats in the blood. Number 4, do not smoke because nicotine in cigarette smoke causes constriction of arteries and increases the heartbeat rate. So cigarette smoke will cause the constriction or the contraction of arteries and increase the heartbeat rate. These two actions will increase the blood pressure and make a person get high blood pressure, which can lead to the bursting of the arteries. So these are the 4 points. That's all for this lesson, and remember to share, like, comment and subscribe. In the next lesson, we'll be studying about the nucleic acids. So stay tuned, because nucleic acid is a new topic in the syllabus for you. Thank you and goodbye.